Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Don't Risk It podcast presented by VFIS Client Risk Solutions. This program focuses on the exposures our clients frequently encounter and discusses some potential solutions to help reduce these exposures. I'm your host, Chris Rogers with VFIS Client Risk Solutions, and today we're talking about some best practices as it pertains to ice rescue. Brian DeQuinn is a team member of mine on the Client Risk Solutions team, and he'll be assisting me in the interview today. I want to welcome Todd Stahl to the program. Todd is the president of WhiteCap Water Rescue Training, and his company specializes in water and ice rescue training, and they're located in South Central Pennsylvania. Todd, I want to thank you for taking some time to join us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
And again, thank you for being here. Assuming ice is strong enough to walk on, it can obviously be a risky proposition. I have some personal experience in that area. I'm from southern Oklahoma, and we get snow and ice maybe once a year. And my dad had a pond that froze over, and I saw a solid surface, so I assume, hey, that it's solid, it can support me. And when I walked on it, about 2 steps later, I was submerged in that pond. So can you talk about how do we determine if ice is safe enough to walk on, or should we stay away from it?
Yes. First of all, let's start out. There is no such thing as safe ice. Ice does not form a uniform thickness, and it does not thaw out at a uniform rate. It could be 3 inches over one section of the pond, and it could be 6 or 7 inches on another side of the pond, and we could possibly have open water on another area of the pond. So there is no such thing as safe ice.
And yes, I figured that out. So what is the PPE required for an ice rescue that may differ from a traditional water rescue?
Yeah, for ice rescue, we can wear dry suits for ice rescue situations. We can also don an ice rescue suit. An ice rescue suit is it's a large, oversized suit ensemble, which is one piece and has the gloves attached, boots attached, a harness on it. It is not U.S. Coast Guard approved. There aren't any ice rescue suits out there that are U.S. Coast Guard approved. These are designed specifically for still stagnant cold water and or ice related emergencies. Again, they are not designed per the manufacturer guidelines for moving water incidents and moving water ice related incidents over top of moving water.
So Todd, I think it's important in a previous segment that we talked about with water rescue, ice rescue, you probably have more of a chance of seeing someone wearing full turnout gear. I think it's important that we emphasize, is that appropriate, or is that something we should really be staying away from just because we are close to the water?
Yes, let's touch on the what not to wear for ice-related emergencies and cold water emergencies. And then the first thing would be turnout gear. Again, turnout gear is designed for fire rescue-related incidents. It is not designed for ice and water-related incidents. Wearing turnout gear, which is also known as bunker gear, can be a very hazard and dangerous situation for an individual, for a rescuer. It has no positive buoyancy at all, has no thermal protection when wet, it's heavy, it's bulky, it has very little mobility designed for it in ice and water applications.
So what are some of the techniques that we should use or recommend and obviously train on to have effective ice rescue?
When arriving on an ice rescue incident, we want to make sure we go through the methods of rescue, the mode of rescue. And obviously we want to work from low risk to high risk. We want to make sure that we are on a safe haven for us and everything is safe for the rescuer. And that first starts out with arriving on the scene and, can we talk the victim or victims into self-rescue? Can they rescue themselves with a little bit of verbiage? Next would be a throw or reach type device. Do we have a throw bag that we could launch or deploy to them? Or do we have a wading pole or a reach pole that we can, extend out to them? And then if available, we could go with a boat or some type of platform based where we would actually be entering the ice conditions And then if we did not have that available or could not utilize it, we would go to a go or direct type rescue. And again, that's where we are as the rescuer. We're leaving the shoreline, and now we're going to a high risk application and going out onto the ice and so forth. And if we're unable to do that, and the last resort would be calling in a helicopter to assist us from the aerial.
So, Todd, talking about techniques, I think it's important for our listeners to understand that through those techniques, you should have very robust policies, procedures, guidelines, whatever your organization develops. So as we kind of go down that rabbit hole, is there necessarily procedures or standards that we can use that are going to help us derive those policies, procedures, guidelines for an effective process of ice rescue?
Yes, if we're going to utilize and provide the service of ice and water-related emergencies, we need to have standard operational guidelines in place or something to guide our team and direct our players, our rescuers, while operating on these scenes and give them some standards for training also. First of all, we want to look at NFPA 1670, which is the level of functioning capability for an agency. And those 3 levels of functioning capability of service would be awareness, operations level, and technician level. They are the 3 levels of service that we could provide. Your agency may only go to the awareness level, and other teams may be providing technician level service. The next one would be the NFPA 1006, with the professional rescuer requirements. That's the minimum standard requirements for a professional rescuer. And then some of the other ones out there would be NFPA 1983, the life safety on rope and equipment and components geared towards that operation. And then 1858, NFPA 1858, which is the standard of care and maintenance on equipment. And then recently, NFPA, we have a bundled requirement, or a bundled package, I should say, where NFPA 2500 consists of NFPA 1670, NFPA 1983, and NFPA 1858 is all bundled into NFPA 2500 as a bundled package.
So how can we effectively train for these types of conditions? Ice is not always around, and it's not always going to be there when we want to train on it. So what are some ways that we can train and to effectively do an ice rescue when we might not have ice around?
Yeah, again, ice rescues are very low volume, high risk, more of a seasonal type rescue, or if you would say that. As we come into the winter months, you want to make sure your equipment is up to care and up to speed and well maintained. And we want to start practicing the basics, our throw lines, making sure our suits are in good condition and utilizing and donning the suits. And, work slow, work small, and then start to grow as you proceed with the training. Sometimes we have to take a road trip or what we call a field trip. And, if we don't have ice in our immediate area to train on, we go somewhere and we train for these types of conditions that we're going to be introduced to, such as, shore-based ice rescue or going out onto the ice. Again, we're not getting dispatched just for ice-related emergencies where someone has fallen through the ice. Typically, we also will be dispatched for someone has a medical condition. They were out on the ice, out on the pond, ice skating. Ice fishing is a very big hobby. It's out there. And, as we all know, cardiac-related emergencies are very high, whether public safety or non-public safety. And with the conditions that we have in the winter months, that's a known issue to encounter. And we could be dispatched for an ice rescue, and it could be for a medical-related incident on the surface of the ice.
So, Todd, that actually brings up a really good point is, certainly some of our rescues are affecting rescues because of medical-related emergencies. But I think it's important for our listeners to understand that they have concerns for medical problems themselves as the rescuer. Can you kind of elaborate at what some of the medical conditions that we need to be aware of as we're going out and affecting some of those?
Yes, some of the medical emergencies that we as public safety officials and rescuers may encounter, the one would be cold water shock. Again, cold water shock is something that's year round. We can encounter that at any time, whether it be an ice related or a water related issue. Again, cold water shock is the body's response or natural reaction to the introduction of cold water, which becomes a big issue if the rescuer is not part of the solution and we become part of the problem. Now we have double the issue going on, and we have we went from one victim to a second victim. A second medical emergency that we may encounter, again, would be hypothermia. Hypothermia is the lowering of the body core temperature. We're losing heat faster than we can produce it. Again, and when it's not a seasonal thing, that's a year-round condition that we can encounter as a rescuer out on these types of incidents. So we, as rescue personnel, we need to dress properly. We need to don our gear properly and wear base layers and sufficient equipment and PPE when dealing with any type of ice-related or water-related incident. Also, we have to be aware of drowning. There's 3 types of drownings that we may encounter with these the victims that we come in contact with. And the 3 types of drownings: we have a wet drowning, we have a dry drowning, and we have a dry secondary drownings. So we have to be aware of those 3 types of drownings: the cold water shock and the hypothermia. And again, they're all year round. They are not seasonal.
So to kind of circle back to a point that you made in your last comment about not increasing the number of victims or individuals that we need to rescue, what are some of the recommendations to the general public for helping beyond going 911 so they're not becoming like I just said another victim that needs to be rescued?
Yes, if a public or civilian comes upon an ice rescue, they see someone struggling or who has collapsed or fell through the ice, we want to make sure we have a visual on them. We want to remain on the shoreline in a safe haven if we are not trained and outfitted and have the proper backup with us. Stay on the shoreline. We want to keep a visual. We want to call the incident in. We want to secure the scene. By doing that, we're not allowing secondary and other members of the public out onto the ice who are not trained. And therefore, we went from 1 victim, now we got 2 or 3 victims. So if we can secure the shoreline, secure the scene, keep a visual on them, communicate with them, and call the incident in, that's a big help for us, because we ultimately want to know the point last seen and last known point of that victim or victims that we have. The biggest thing I tell fire rescue teams and so forth are, if we get dispatched for an ice rescue, we want to plan for more than one, but hope that we only have one. And, some of our rescues that we encounter or incidents that we get dispatched on might be for small animals, might be for a dog out on a pond that fell through or collapsed. And, now the owner or the handler is going out on that ice to try to assist that dog. And now we went from 1 to 2 people through the pond, through the ice. So that's a very common thing that we see often is we want to plan for more than one and hope that we only have one.
So can you give our listeners an overview of where they can find some additional information about WhiteCap if they're interested in the training, or just some more information about your organization?
Sure. One thing I want to touch on prior to that would be, what are some of the danger and warning signs as a rescuer or a civilian? What can we look for when we're down near the shoreline, whether it be a river, a pond, or lake, or quarry? Some of the dangers or warning signs that we want to look for upon arriving on a scene or testing the ice conditions to see, hey, is it a proper thickness for us? And some of them, again, we want to look for, do we have open water in or around the area? Obviously, if we got open water, that's definitely an indication that we have poor ice conditions or weak ice conditions. So open water is one of the first things that we want to look for. Another warning sign that we want to look for poor ice conditions would be cracks or fractures in the surface of the ice. If we see fractures and cracks running through the surface of the ice, that's an indication that possibly could have weak ice conditions in and around that area. And another one would be a texture. And also, we want to look at the discolor of the ice. Texture of the ice is a big one, and we can look at that and see, is it a solid ice or is it a shaved type ice? Is it rotten ice? Is it discolored? So those are some of the warning signs that would indicate, as a rescuer or a civilian, if I'm looking to go out on the pond, do any of these conditions exist? And again, ice does not form a uniform thickness. There is no such thing as safe ice. So therefore, we want to be very careful. And if we are going out on the ice, we want to make sure that we take some type of throw bag with us, and we want to have a life jacket on, and we want to be able to sound the ice. We want to sound the ice in front of us to make sure, are we on secure ice? Do we have the proper thickness of ice to travel on it? Relating to WhiteCap Water Rescue Training, you can locate us at www.whitecaprescue.com.
And we'll include your contact information in the description of the podcast, if that's okay with you, and to have some individuals reach out to you if they're interested.
Yes, sir. That'd be fine. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, like I said, it was a pleasure having you on the program today, and I really want to thank you for your time, Todd.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you for listening to the program today and for your interest in VFIS safety resources. I want to thank our guest Todd Stahl once again for his time and information. Please consider subscribing to our program to stay up to date on new content releases. For more information about the many resources available from VFIS, please visit VFIS.com. And to submit ideas for future discussions, please reach out by email at VFISriskcontrol@VFIS.com. Thanks everyone, and have a great day. The views, information, or opinions expressed during this program are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Gladfelter Insurance Group, VFIS, and its employees.